Welcome to World History with Mr. Giese. In this episode, we will continue our discussion of how the Enlightenment ideas began to examine long-standing problems in society. We'll do this by looking into how these ideas would inspire the colonists in America to challenge Great Britain's control over them. This would lead to the American Revolution and a new nation. The British colonies in America emerged from the ideas of the Enlightenment and the Age of Exploration as European countries were looking for westward passage to the Indies. By exploring and establishing colonies in America, this offered new opportunities that did not exist in Great Britain. Land was plentiful and cheap, the class system was almost non-existent, and they could advance themselves through intelligence and hard work. For over 150 years, the colonists had a considerable amount of independence. They were able to create their own governments and made most of their laws. In fact, although they were subjects of Great Britain, colonists began to identify more closely with the colonies than that of Great Britain. That would change, though. The Crown started to assert power to impose laws over the colonists after the French and Indian War. After Great Britain defeated France, France gave up their northern colonies. This war would not be without heavy costs, and to offset these costs, Great Britain decided to tax the colonies because they were the ones that benefited the most from the French being expelled from the region. First of many taxes was the Stamp Act. This was a tax for a stamp on all newspapers, legal documents, and other public papers. Colonial leaders became outraged because Parliament did not consider their input before they levied this tax. They decided to boycott English goods, and Parliament repealed the act the following year. In 1767, Parliament placed the Townshend Acts on the colonists. This was a tax on glass, paper, paints, and tea. This further angered colonists, and in Boston, merchants began to boycott goods. After years of soldiers being heckled constantly, someone fired a shot, and 5 men were killed in the Boston Massacre. After this, Parliament repealed most of the taxes, except the one on tea. In 1773, the Sons of Liberty and a group of rebellious Bostonians dumped hundreds of crates of tea into the harbor to protest the tax on tea. The Boston Tea Party would lead to the Intolerable Acts, further limiting freedoms of those in the colonies and leading to the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia in 1774. This was done to list their grievances against the British government, but it was voted down. Expecting a fight, colonists started to stockpile weapons, and in 1775 the American Revolution began. Meanwhile, the Second Continental Congress met and drafted the Declaration of Independence and presented many ideas of the Enlightenment to the world. Their struggle was embraced by many countries around the world. The British would surrender to General George Washington in 1781, and 2 years later, in the Treaty of Paris, the British would formally recognize the independence of the United States of America. Now for the most daunting task for this new nation, creating a government. Leaders began with a Confederate style of government called the Articles of Confederation. This is a style of government that gives the local governments, in this case the states, a majority of power. This was done because they did not want to be ruled by a highly centralized government like a monarch. This was established in 1781 and was the United States' first government. However, leaders started to notice that there were a lot of weaknesses, including the federal government not being able to tax. That led them going back to the drawing board. In 1787, delegates met at the Constitutional Convention to revise the Articles of Confederation. Instead, they wrote the Constitution. The Constitution sets the United States up into a federal system of government where certain powers are given to the local or state governments and certain powers are given to the federal government. Using Enlightenment ideas of government by dividing the federal government into 3 branches, a system of checks and balances, and having 2 houses in Congress, the Constitution set out to eliminate the chances of any one or small group gaining too much control. In order to satisfy those who were nervous of the federal government gaining too much power and to protect the rights of citizens, a Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution. This continued the Enlightenment philosophers' ideas of freedom of speech and religion. One of the ideas that is still strong with the American style of government is that of popular sovereignty. This is the belief that the government's power comes from the people and is normally exercised in the method of voting. This revolution would not be the only one that stemmed from the ideas of the Enlightenment. The American Revolution was ending as one was starting to bubble up in France. How would that look? Would they have the same success as the United States? These 2 questions and more will be answered in our next video. Alright, so there were 2 topics that we covered: systems of government like federal and confederate, and the Enlightenment ideas that inspired our government. If you needed to learn a little bit more about those, links to those videos are down below. Hopefully you'll enjoy those too.